Are there any questions? I just have a few announcements to make. The first one is that, it seems like we filled the quota for this retreat in August. If you have any thoughts of going, you'll have to go on a waiting list. Um, there is one in October, and there's just about 7 or 8 people that have signed up. So there's room if you want to, get in touch with Jennifer and tell her you want to attend, and it's open right now. And then there's another one in December, which is the same thing, about 7 or 8 people have signed up. And the second thing is that, either next Sunday or Monday, I'm going to go on a week, 10-day vacation. I just have to, I have to rest. I'm really very tired. And so I'm just going to go away for about 10 days and maybe enjoy a beach or enjoy nature or something, which I really have to do. Just when I get back, the classes will be that deep, much deeper and stronger, and be prepared for the retreat. So, I'm just telling you all this so that it doesn't come as a surprise. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? I mean, this whole meditation is really one of, step by step, incrementally growing and building a system that can do very simple things, where there's joy, there's love, there's openness, happiness. We function here on the highest level of what it means to be human. Instead of judging people, we have compassion for them. Instead of being angry at people, we forgive them. We learn how to treat life as if it's our teacher, not our enemy, not some pain in the ass that we have to deal with every day, but our teacher, who is in one way or another teaching us what each one of us has to do to grow and to get closer to God. I mean, this is what karma is all about. Understand? And it's transforming this energy, which is very difficult, that, really people get very frightened of and hide from, transforming it into one's teacher, where you bow to it, you learn from it, you grow because of what it teaches you. It presents you with many different opportunities to grow, and build a system inside that will do two things. Firstly, it'll get a person to where there's joy and love permanently, not just when, as I always kid around, win the lotto or something fantastic happens to them. They get a new pair of shoes, they get a new, skirt, or this, or trousers, or shirt. They feel better for 20 minutes, and then they fall right back into the thinking process and the mind and emotions, that rips happiness out of them. But a sustained happiness, while one is taking out the garbage, while one is dealing with very difficult situations that both in oneself and with people that are close to one, we can keep our hearts open. And instead of being resentful and full of anger, there's compassion, there's love, there's the realization that every single human being on this planet, in one way or another, is going through it. There's some kind of difficulty in their lives. Most people complain about it, they let it defeat them, they let it tear them apart. They get neurotic, they get angry, they get migraine headaches, they get all kinds of heart attacks, from something that, just the simple feeling of gratitude and forgiveness and bowing to it instead of being angry with it. can transform not only one's inner life, but the entire world that we see around us. Life changes as we change inside us. And this is a significant thing I've learned. I mean, Rudy used to talk about it, but it took me a long time not to learn it. I mean, his words, were always, part of my life, but I mean to live it, for it to become living experience. Because that's the key to mastering what is being practiced in this meditation. Not memorizing a bunch of theorems and parables and this, that, are spiritually very wise and make sense, but they're so totally out of the reach of one's daily life that one doesn't even know how to begin to get to them. But to build a system inside, a chakra system, incrementally, slowly, step by step, that enables one to transform anger, unhappiness, revenge, distrust, into forgiveness, into love, into happiness, into truly functioning on the highest level of what it means to be a human being. And it's not easy to do, but it's certainly doable because we have all the tools. We have everything that can make it possible to do what I'm talking about. It's a matter of just building a system like that in ourselves, working on ourselves every day to do that. God is love. It's no more complicated than that. God is love. Rudy always said it's written on every church, synagogue, mosque, every temple in the world. God is love. People see that, all the time. It's gotten trite. People see it so much. They're so familiar with that expression. And from being just an expression and a very interesting and nice maxim that somebody wrote on a church or a synagogue or a mosque, to becoming living experience. I mean, in my last Tantra thing, I have a picture of Michelangelo's painting on the Sistine Chapel of the two fingers, the hand of man and the hand of God. And there's that distance between the two of them. But it's that distance that requires the development of an inner life that is strong enough to be able to live in the hand of man and to live in the hand of God at exactly the same time. I mean, I don't know if Michelangelo practiced Tantra, but that's one of the most tantric things I've ever seen, that painting. And the distance between here and here is the distance one makes up by building an inner life that is strong enough to bring the hand of man and the hand of God together. And that's our work. That is the work of humanity. To do this. That's what human beings are born here to learn how to do. It's incredible. And throughout thousands of years, wise men, philosophers, they've been saying this. And it's amazing how few people really listen and do the work that they have to do on themselves to build that kind of an inner life. I don't know, somebody has to mute themselves. I can mute myself if you want. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Does anyone have a question they would like to ask?
Hi.
Yes, Aileen. Hi.
Is there something that we can do um, every single day besides this meditation? Something that helps to stay in the present moment?
It's hard for me to, yes, okay. There are many different paths to learn to do what I'm talking about. In my life, I found this one. And over the years of doing it, it worked. So I don't go looking for other methods. I tell people you can sit down for 20 minutes a day and do your meditation, work on yourself, and during the day, constantly remind yourself, take a deep breath, bring your attention below the navel, sit down on a bench or a chair and just drop negative tension, let it go. There are many different things. Yoga, there's about 1,000 different kinds of yoga that people practice, but years ago, I stopped doing any of that stuff because when I met Rudy, I never met anyone who taught anything like it. So I really started practicing this and committed myself to doing it. And over time, and over having surrendered in such great depth to do what I do in my life, you become a child of God. You become a servant of a higher force of energy in the universe. And this whole exercise is about building a system inside you that can enable you to do what I'm talking about. And that's the chakra system, which is a direct link of every human being and higher energy in the universe. So yes, there are many different paths. I don't, I can't talk about them because I don't do them. But I have done this for a long time. And before I met Rudy, I did 1,000 different things, and none of them worked for me. I met Rudy, and all of a sudden it started working like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And it became like a miraculous thing to me to do this inner work. So yes, there are people chant mantras. I don't know. I run ashrams. I lived in ashrams. I've done all that stuff. I visited, churches and synagogues and all kinds. For God's sake, I was in South India, in Kerala, in Cochin. In the 12th century, they had a huge Jewish community. And I went to a synagogue in Cochin in the 12th century that was built in the 12th century. And I went there looking if I could find something that could help me in my spiritual practice. I didn't find much. It was kind of a rundown old place, and not a lot of energy there. But I've looked for it all over. Teachers all over India, Tibetans and Swamis and Rinpoches and all kinds of teachers. And it always brought me back to the miracle of what I learned from Rudy. And I was able to apply it to my life for many, many, many years, and it worked. So, I'm not saying people shouldn't do other things. Yes, do what your karma brings into your life. I'm not here to judge anybody, and I'm not in competition with anybody else. I'm just talking about what worked for me. And it worked for me because I really focused on it and did it. I did it in a, in unrelenting, profound, unabashed way. And yeah, I used to complain sometimes because, you're up against yourself. And when you're up against yourself, it's very difficult. But eventually it began to happen. So yeah, there's all kinds of pranayama and hatha yoga and this and that. But one has to really do what truly works for them. But then do it. Don't do it in a half-assed way. Do it. Do what you have to do to get to God, whatever it is. And I mean this. Because if you do it in a half-assed way where you procrastinate and you this and that, all you're doing is promoting your case to have about 6 or 8 more lifetimes on the planet Earth. That's all you're doing. So whatever a person finds, you really have to do it. If it works for you, if it doesn't work for you, don't do it. Find something that does. I mean, one of the hardest things I ever had to do in my life was to go to Rudy and say, Rudy, can I live in your house, in your ashram, to study with you? Because when I was a kid, I was a loner. I mean, I traveled all over the world by myself. I used to hitchhike everywhere by myself, all over the world. I was a loner. And I knew by going there, I would get so broken down. I would get such a training. And I knew I needed that for my life. And I asked him, I said, Rudy, can I do this? And he said, yes, please. And it wasn't easy. I mean, first couple of months were great. And then 20 people lived there. I used to come back at night. I didn't even know I had a place to sleep. There was so many people living there. And I once complained to him, I'll never forget it. I was walking down the street, 4th Avenue with him. And I said, Rudy, I said, I said, I don't have a place to sleep at night. And he looked at this is something he looked at a weed growing in the crack of a New York City sidewalk. And he said, that weed has more courage than you do. I mean, what a lesson. He never complained again. Imagine being a weed growing in a crack in a New York City and surviving. Amazing. People can't survive there, but a weed can survive. But I took those chances with my life. And then he wanted to go to Denton, Texas. Who the hell ever wanted to live in Denton, Texas? I mean, I lived in Paris, I lived in Rome, I lived in London, I lived all over Germany, I lived in Morocco, and he asked me to go and run an ashram in Denton, Texas. And it was the last place in the world I would, So I went down there, and he came down about 4 months later, and he told me, I want you to go there for 3 weeks and just get that ashram together. These people were having a nightmare there. So I went down there. I'll never forget it. I went down there, and there were maybe 10, 12 people there. And I think 3/4 of them were the biggest drug dealers in Texas, of these people that were living in this ashram. And the only rule Rudy had in his meditation was no drugs. No drugs. He won't teach anybody if they're on drugs. I'll never forget. I made an announcement to these people, you're going to have to flush all your drugs down the toilet. And if you don't flush them down the toilet, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to bring Rudy into a place where everybody is stoned all day. 9 of the 12 people left. I was stuck with 3 students. I had to build an ashram. I had 3 students. It was unbelievable, And it started, and then 3 months, 4 months later, Rudy came there. People started coming, and there were classes. And he came down there, and I said, Rudy, there's been a hell of a 3 weeks. It's like 4 months now. And he said, you're on your 3rd day or 4th day, told me. And then you learned how the world was created in 7 days. Took me 9 years to work out 3 weeks, 9 years, until the cycle truly finished itself. And there was nothing else I could do there. And I knew I had to go back to New York because I needed a situation that was much bigger than I had in Denton in order to grow in my life. I moved back to New York, started from ground zero again. all over again. I'm just giving you things I did because I knew I had to do them to have a spiritual life. My life is different now. I've been through all that. I kind of feel like, Odysseus, having traveled, traveled home here, but it's what you got to do. It's what Rudy did. It's what you got to do to grow. You got to do whatever God requires. Tune into that energy and learn what you have to do. Otherwise, you spend your life hiding out in a cave. And it takes guts to do this. It really does. You have to give up something. You have to, well, what can I do? What do I have to give up? I'm trying to find a place where, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to try to find a place where I can have regular classes. And, I say it's very funny. When I was traveling all over the world teaching, I always wondered how I can get everyone together in one place. And, I would go, South America, I would go to Europe, I go all over the United States, the Middle East, and teaching this meditation. And I said, how do I get everyone together? I needed to do that at that point of my life. And it really made me grow, taking that responsibility on myself. And on top of that, I went to India 20 times because I was running a business selling arts and crafts from India, and I had to go there. So on top of going to the Middle East and Brazil, and, all over Europe and all over, I had to go to India too in order to run my business. But it's what God put in my lap, and every single little bit of it did nothing but help me get closer to God, because I knew that was the only place I could get the energy to do what I was doing in my life. And I mean this. And going there gave me the energy to do what I had to do in my life. So it's not that I was some avatar born in a lotus flower, put on an orange robe and proclaim my sacred nature to the world, It was a grind, a serious grind of growing and developing, and even the ability to talk this way was I didn't talk this way 10 years ago. With this kind of clarity and simplicity. But it was time that enabled me to build this thing, doing all these things. Now, this might chase, most of you away. I don't know. But I'm just telling you how I grew in my life. I didn't grow by hiding out. I grew by taking huge responsibility on myself. That's what this work is. It's becoming a servant of God. And I told you before, I was sitting at a lecture that Swami so-and-so, I won't mention names, was giving. And he's talking about you got to worship the guru. And if you worship the guru, you will get your spiritual enlightenment. And Rudy is sitting right behind me in the lecture, and he whispers in my ear, you got to worship the guru because the guru is God. And if you worship the guru, you will get your spiritual enlightenment. And Rudy's sitting behind me, he whispers in my ear, God is God. The best a guru can do is be a servant of God and a servant of his students. And I will never forget that as long as I live. That's the best you can do on the planet Earth, to be a servant. It requires humility, it requires grace, it requires the deepest level of surrender. It requires being willing to do the impossible. And that's to totally transform yourself into a child of God. Now, he told me this 50 years ago, and I never forgot it. Does anyone else, or does anyone have a question? Yes, anyone else have a great question, Aileen? It brought it brought a lot out. Does anyone else have a question they would like?
I have a question, Stuart. When you mentioned going on vacation, I have a question. You mentioned going on vacation, and I'm glad you're doing that. Did you say when you were going to be gone?
Probably either next Sunday or Monday. Not this Monday, not tomorrow, but next week.
Okay.
I just need a break from the computer. I need a break. I really do. And if I don't take a break, you just got to change something so you come back and you're fresh and you can bring the best of yourself. And that's what I want to do.
You absolutely deserve it. Thank you for your teachings.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? Okay. I can throw out one other thing. If people really are interested, I could do a retreat every month instead of every 2 months if people want to come and support. But I can't do it if I don't get any interest. That's why now it's every 2 months and there seems to be interest in that. And I know it's expensive and it's this and it's that. But as Rudy once told me, you're not working hard enough in Denton, Texas. What should I buy that building? Rudy, I got $600 to my name. The building was a shopping center. And he said, anyone could do it with money. If you need to do something, I'm telling you, God works for you. I remember once, just to finish this all up, when I was running that ashram in Denton, all the students there were going to go up for Christmas, I guess it was, to visit Rudy and spend like a week there. And we were going to drive, and I was the teacher, and I didn't have 50 cents to my name, and everybody had to chip in $40. And I said, well, how the hell am I going to do this? I was embarrassed that I was the guru. I didn't have $40 to make the trip. And 1 hour before we were going to leave, this guy comes across the street, comes into this gallery that I was running. And he said, Stuart, I know you're kind of leaving, and I've been thinking about this table now for about a week, and I really want to buy it. How much? And the table was $40. I looked at him, I said, you're a messenger of God who just came here. And he took the table, he gave me $40, and I unabashedly made the trip to New York without having to tell everybody I'm broke, I can't afford to go. If you need to do something, I'm telling you, God will take care of it. God has taken care of me. I wish. I'll never forget that $40. 1 hour before we were going to leave. This guy, it was like 7 o'clock in the morning or something. I came, they want to buy this table for $40. Okay. Does anyone else have a question you would like to ask? Okay, well, thank you. God bless you all. There will be meditation tomorrow evening. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all. Have a wonderful evening and bless you.